Hey everyone, Tony D and Little Joan here on a Piney podcast. Wake up, Little Joan. Wake up. Everybody wants to see your pretty face. Hello. Hello, pretty face. Hello. Okay, so I hate to do this again, but I got to get into the beer virus again. Um, Despite the fact there was only a few hundred cases, you know, Murphy and some of the media are making noise that they're laying the groundwork to close things back up again, and they're acting as if oh, we got no choice, even though they're perfectly happy with these protests. um, you look at these numbers. Hospitalizations, um, expected to drop 22% from July 1st to through the 7th. I don't know why, because actually you might see a bit of an uptick because things started to open up and it was July 4th. But if you compare it a month ago, on June 4th, 1,982 people were hospitalized. On Sunday, the number was 917. On June 4th, 537 people were in critical or intensive care. The number Sunday was 210. May 17th, when the reopening started, New Jersey had over 1,200 cases. Sunday, the number was 303. So you could see this precipitous drop on every metric, save for the ones that Murphy is concentrating on, like rate of transmission, right? And concentrating on places where the virus is now spreading, partly due to the influx of migrant workers in the South, and partly just due to the virus kind of being there, and partly just due to statistics, because now the numbers are so low. If you get an uptick of a couple of dozen cases, that looks significant if you talk about it as a percentage, right? If you get like 40 new cases, that doesn't sound like much across the state, but if you say South Jersey's up by 15%, well, suddenly that sounds like a big number, because you imagine that could be thousands of people, not 40. So they're playing this numbers game to make the virus sound worse than it is. And if you look at all the states, and these are all the states here, you could see that it peaked. All the cases peaked mostly in months ago. Now, Arizona is an exception. They've had a peak, and a couple other places they've had a peak. But these are states mostly kind of out of the way. They weren't hit by the virus initially. And now that things are starting to open up again, yes, you're going to get a bit of another spike. But the hospitalization and deaths are down. Okay? This is the daily death toll. Now you see here a spike. Now, not at a peak. One day back on April 16th, almost 5,000 people died. You go to today, this is across the country, 242 cases across 330 million people. And if you back it up to June 26th, you had almost 2,500 cases, almost 2,500 deaths. Again, that's a small number when you compare it to the country. But even if you account for that, that was June 26th. You have to go back 2 weeks at least. That was approximately June 12th. What was happening on June 12th? Oh, I think there was a bunch of riots. And 2 weeks before that, guess what? That was George Floyd getting killed by that cop, at the end of May. And so you're talking about the spikes we're seeing partly because of these protests and the spreading of the virus. Because, it's one thing to have a peaceful protest, as the people who protested the lockdowns did. It's another thing to have a bunch of rioting morons running around lighting things on fire and throwing bricks. Those guys are going to spread the disease way more than the peaceful protesters who were just annoyed that they can't open their damn business. So, once again, New Jersey is following in the wake of all the Democratic states. I think they follow the pattern of California and New York. They're looking to give Biden cover. Murphy said something today like, oh, I think we should have mandatory mask wearing across the entire country. That's exactly what Biden said. That's cover for Biden. He's trying to prop him up, I believe. Now, here's another big story. And again, South Jersey. Protest to shut down Atlantic City ends after seven arrests. Ends in 7 arrests after highway march. Now, this was the protest in Atlantic City. The Pagans had talked about showing up. I don't know if they did, but let's take a look at this article. This is from NBC 10, Philadelphia. 4th of July protest against racial injustice in New Jersey ended following the arrest of 7 demonstrators at the Atlantic City Expressway. Protests began at 1 p.m. Sunday in front of Atlantic City's Public Safety Building. The Atlantic City Police said in a news release it was one of many demonstrations in South Jersey and around the country following the May 25th death of George Floyd in Minnesota. Demonstrators shut down traffic on Atlantic Avenue, Albany Bridge, where officer with a bullhorn read a city ordinance blocking traffic on the bridge, and down Winchester Avenue to the end of the expressway. So, yeah, you don't block traffic. Nobody wants that. The protest was organized by Black Men United Coalition and Stephen Young, who serves on a city planning board and another civilian board on police community relations. So this is not Black Lives Matter. He promoted the protest earlier in the week on We Have Gospel, an FM radio station that also broadcasts Facebook Lives. This is probably actually a peaceful protest. Come with your mask, your voices, and come in peace, Young said. Good for you. Good for you, sir. So, if you want to come here and have a peaceful time, we've got to check you at the gate, Young said. So they were trying to check for the beer virus. I don't know how realistic that is, but good for you for attempting to do it. The mayor defended the group's right to protest, was critical efforts to shut down the city, saying it would harm businesses that are hurting because of the beer virus epidemic. Yes. Well, mayor, let them do their protest and just don't let them shut down businesses. I mean, that's what you're there to do, Mayor. You're there to send the cops to make sure there's no trouble. Now this is where it gets into why the media is so biased these days. I'm going to read you this section. Mayor Marty Small defended the group's right to protest, but was critical of efforts to shut down, quote unquote, the city, saying it would harm businesses and hurting because of the beer virus closures. I'm editing by saying beer virus, by the way. Others were finally starting to take down plywood after early June peaceful protests that led to looting and property damage. Okay, NBC 10, explain to me how a peaceful protest that led to looting and property damage is peaceful. It's not peaceful. That's not a peaceful protest. The June protest was not peaceful. It wasn't a protest. It was a riot. Okay? It doesn't matter what the intent was. It was a riot. If I call myself a peaceful protester and I rob people on the street, I am not a peaceful protester. This is the kind of framing that the media has been doing on a national level, places like CNN and MSNBC, and here it is on a local level. This is NBC 10 in Philadelphia. Who's the reporter here? Joe Brandt and the Associated Press. I mean, that's ridiculous. That you leave that adjective in, peaceful protests that led to looting and property damage. Listen to that. That's ridiculous. And this is the kind of reporting we get now. This is why your media is completely useless. That they would frame it like this. It's infuriating. The paragraph ends, like Philadelphia and Trenton, Atlantic City had a curfew in place several days last month. Yeah, fat lot of good it did. Fat lot of good. It's just unbelievable. So, the point I'm making is this. This is a peaceful protest, relatively. Now, they got to the highway and they arrested 7 people. because they were blocking the highway. Are you paying attention, Seattle? That's what you do to protesters who block a highway. You let them protest. If they start blocking the highway, you arrest them. Simple as that. And these people are peaceful. They get to go to jail. Oh, but not the rioters and looters you have in Seattle. These poor people go to jail. Now, obviously, they can't block the highway. But thank you for being peaceful. You're protesting. Obviously, there's a good chance you're going to go to jail, especially if you do something stupid like that. You should not block the highway. I don't support that, but I support your peaceful protest. Go on the boardwalk and protest. That's where all the people are. The whole point of a protest is that make yourself seen, make yourself heard. Everybody's on the boardwalk. Why are you in the highway? You'll get seen by a few people in cars, but they'll just be annoyed at you. Atlantic City police said the crowd entered the eastbound lanes of the expressway, but dispersed after several men, including Young, were arrested. Young, I don't know why you would go into the highway. I really don't. Police said they were charged with obstructing a highway and refusal to obey a reasonable official request. Okay, I don't know if that's a good law. It sounds kind of vague. 3 were also charged with resisting arrest. That's always lame. That's always a lame charge. All were released with a summons with a future court date, which is the way it should go. This is how you do a protest, Seattle. It's calm, it's peaceful. People get a few summons, they go to court, probably gets thrown out, unless you did something stupid. Small says he plans to remove Young from his seats on the 2 city boards. Young was appointed by former Mayor Frank Gillum, who stepped down last year after pleading guilty in federal court to defrauding a youth basketball club. Oh, yeah. I remember that guy. We did a little bit of video on him. I don't know if you can be an objective, unbiased, guy in government. If you're out protesting against the government, you're supposed to be monitoring. I mean, you're the guy who's monitoring the cops in Atlantic City, and you're organizing protests against them. It's kind of counterintuitive. I mean, if the Atlantic City police are as racist as the ones that killed George Floyd, isn't that partly on you? Just saying. So, but I am glad that you kept it peaceful, but it doesn't look like this was the major thing it was threatening to be. As always, it got blown out of proportion. I partly blame myself for that, for talking about it. I mean, I thought the pagans were coming. I guess they couldn't get a permit and didn't want to, get hassled. And why should they, really? And really, if you don't want people in a protest to gain attention, don't pay attention to them. Just let them protest, and then they go away. They get bored and go away. So this is exactly how protests should go. Now, will it change anything? No, I don't think this protest did anything except inconvenience a lot of people. But, that being said, thank you for being peaceful. And what was the name of this group again? This was the Black Men United Coalition and Steve Young. So, yes, thank you for giving the cops here a break and not turning into a Marxist rabble. Thanks for not putting Marxist rabble in your ranks. That's it from South Jersey today. Thanks for tuning in on the Piney podcast. And check out my books, Wokistan, a novel, and, of course, the Piney's books 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5 coming soon. Over there at Amazon.com. Ebook, Kindle Unlimited is free. Trade paperback, and you can get it. Comes right to your door, just with the rest of your Amazon order. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.